Yes, we're live. I figured I was starting our way into our discussion for the week. As you can clearly see, it's all about Spidey.
Spider-Man.
Yes, and I have with me none other than the illustrious, the most knowledgeable, the other comic book geek that I can trust with in terms of knowledgeable stuff. The one, the only, Mr. Juan Magnell from Some Gadget Guy.
What's up, everybody? West Coast represent. Let's chat some Marvel news. I'm stoked about this one.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see he's all refreshed. It's just not early in the morning, so let's do this. So, if you've seen the news, I did a video earlier, and I'm sure you've seen it on almost every single website. Spider-Man is going back to the Marvel Universe. Yeah, he is going to be showing up in the Marvel Universe. He's part of that universe now because Sony and Marvel have worked out a deal where Spider-Man will show up in that universe. And because of that, they've restructured things, and a new Spider-Man movie is coming out July 28th, 2017, taking the place of Thor, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And because of that restructuring, Black Panther moves up to the 6th of July. Thor moves to November of 2017. Inhumans moves to 2018, as well as Captain Marvel also moves dates in 2018.
Well, I mean, this is also every single time we've talked about the expanded movie lineup for Marvel and DC. This is the kind of thing that makes me a little crazy about when we talk about films that are not slated till like 2020. Is because one deal like this over this period of time now just restructured 5 years of film releases. So especially for those of us who are fans of this, it doesn't really mean anything until those movies are actually like in post production and we're seeing trailers for them.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely that. But so that's the good news. There were comments from the new head of Sony, Amy Pascal, as well as Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige basically kind of summarized. He talked about the fact that this will fit into their storyline. They want to find fresh ways to bring a great Spider-Man story. Amy Pascal is a producer on this, so she does get some perks from dropping now, and that's a pretty big one, if you ask me. She talked about how she's always wanted to produce, and this is be a great way to do it, part of the Sony family. And the Sony president basically stated that they wanted to do something good and fresh for the fans. So basically, kind of meaning that Spider-Man 2 wasn't as good as they hoped. And the other news is that what's his name? Andrew Garfield will not be Spider-Man in this new universe. Bummer. I liked him. But now that brings up a lot of questions, which is why the title of this video is Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man, What to Expect. So what do we expect to see, or what do you hope to see? Juan, go ahead, fire up. Like, what do you think? What do you want to see in this new, tied-in universe? Will he show up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Hell no.
You are so cranky about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It just warms my heart every time we get a chance to talk about that whole team of TV superheroes. No, it's for me, it's this Spider-Man has been the beating heart of the Marvel universe my entire childhood and adult life. So he's one of the best characters that you can use for morality tales. He's an amazing character in Civil War, which we know we're building towards with the Captain America and Tony Stark relationship. And it just wouldn't have been the same story without Spider-Man caught in between those two ideologies. So really, I mean, it's everything that we've been talking about before, especially once the rumors started happening about Sony maybe doing a little cross-licensing with Disney, is to get this character in place and in position so that he can actually be a meaningful contributor to the storylines that are coming down. It's really now, I think, the challenge of finding an actor and nailing the right age for the actor for him to fit into this storyline appropriately, but finding the right actor who can give us both a good Spider-Man and a good Peter Parker. I think that's been, for me, the biggest criticism moving throughout all of the Spider-Man movies we've had in the past. We've had one or the other, in my opinion. Yeah, I thought Andrew Garfield was an amazing Spider-Man, but I didn't think he was the best Peter Parker, and I actually really liked Tobey Maguire's slightly older Peter Parker, but I didn't think he was a very good Spider-Man.
But yeah, I feel you on having an opinion,
and especially because my opinion is totally correct, and I think a number of people would totally agree with me because I'm totes right.
Yeah. No, but I hear you on the fact that yes, it's gonna be interesting trying to bring a story, at least some really solid story points to the fact that they're bringing this into the Marvel universe, and you're tying into Civil War. I mean, even though they haven't mentioned he will be in Civil War, he better show up in Civil War. In there. Now it's how do you do that correctly? Especially also the
Hmm.
fact that shooting of that movie starts in April. So I mean, I think they probably knew this deal was going to be in place at
Yeah.
least probably by the end of last year. So they might have done some changes to the script. But then you still need to find the actor. That's the more
Yep.
important part. I think the story details with the way Marvel handles story is fine, except I'm shaky with Ant-Man. But I think they
Well, I
can
mean,
do
we
it.
still need to see how Ant-Man fits into all of this.
Yeah, that
Um,
exactly. That's the one that I'm just kind of like, okay. But
yeah.
the actor, who, so that's actually, you know what? That's one question I want to ask. Like, who do you want to see as the new Spider-Man? As Peter Parker or maybe Miles Morales?
I
Maybe.
mean, if they were ballsy enough to do Miles, there's no way. That's what's so disappointing is here's a wonderful opportunity if we were doing sort of the Spider-Man storyline and we got one more movie with Andrew Garfield where we could have gone through the death of Spider-Man
Oh
through the
God, yes,
Sony universe
exactly.
and
And then
then
the
brought
new.
in Childish Gambino for
Oh
the live
snap!
action Marvel Spider-Man, and that would have been a beautiful continuity. That would have been a
Oh
wonderful way
dude, that
to
would be
go through telling that
so
story.
sick. You're right. You're absolutely. You're genius, man.
Because
Genius.
that's also, I mean, especially as we know that there's still, I mean, and this is another thing too. Actually, we don't know exactly what this means for plans on the Sinister Six film, because that's going to be an interruption, I'm sure, to the pre-production that they've been working towards, where they were probably considering that to be one of the last Andrew Garfield films. So, there's a lot of stuff now that gets completely reorganized with how these characters and how these villains, especially, are going to be incorporated into these storylines. Because having a ton of really super hyper powerful Spider-Man villains doesn't make sense with the storyline leading up to a world where we've already had the Avengers saving us from cosmic deity like.
Well, according to superhero hype, Sinister Six is still in development, and Spider-Man will debut in Captain America: Civil War. So this is coming from a
Oh,
well.
I know, but I mean, like, I'm sure this has got to be a huge reorganization on the Sony side of
Yeah,
what they were probably looking at doing or looking at trying to produce for the Spider-Man continuity that they had started with Garfield.
yeah. I know, I definitely agree. But I love the idea of Garfield still being Spider-Man in Civil War and then getting killed.
You know what? I just don't think they'll do it.
No, no, they don't have
I know that
the balls to do it.
like
Marvel.
any and this is going to be really crappy to say because you've got a Hispanic guy and an African guy talking about what's traditionally a Caucasian character. But I also think there would probably be a little too much audience backlash, and we'd probably see a number of really ugly comments about, this reverse racism, or we're taking all of our white superheroes and making them other colors, even though this
No,
is a really beautiful storyline in the expanded Spider-Man continuity.
no,
I just
true,
don't
true.
think the
But
audiences would have
I
much patience
think
for it.
I mean, I think they can do it if, I mean, again, because he's not Peter Parker that is black. He is
Right.
Miles Morales, which is, it's two different things. Like, like how, say for instance, like the Supergirl TV show where Jimmy Olsen is black. Not saying that there's anything wrong. It's just, you're changing the race of a character. This is a situation where he's established in the Spider-Man universe. He's one of the different Spider-Man
Right.
in Spider-Verse. So
The
he's
Spider
just
Verse.
he's
No, no,
just
no.
taking
I think
over.
it's amazing storytelling, and
Oh
and
yeah.
it would get us away from this need to redo Spider-Man's origins every single time we try and tweak or reboot or deal with, that an actor wants to leave the franchise, something like that. You could start, I mean, with a number of our superheroes, we could start doing things like treating them a bit more like James Bond type
Yeah,
characters.
I think they all
And
should be.
where it's okay if there's a little fluidity with, we're going to move through and we're going to make one character, we're going to shift Thor from being a dude to being a woman. We're going to sort of bend race on things like future incarnations of Captain America. It's I think there's so much potential to do that in film that you probably can't even do that in comic books because we're so used to the way that comic books track continuity. I
Yeah.
just think it'll be a little while yet. I just don't think we're mature enough yet. I think it'll still be a while before audiences will go with us on that kind of an experiment.
Okay, I agree. So, thoughts, people. Who would you like to see as the new Spider-Man? for Peter Parker, and if it's somebody else, oh wow, we have a lot of comments here in the Q&A. Alexander Hernandez says Donald for Spider-Man. So Donald Glover, he's talking about Miles Morales. There you go. Matt Copeland says, bring back Tobey Maguire, ha ha ha, joking. Yeah, thank you for joking, because I'm sorry, man. I do not like Tobey Maguire in that role in any aspect.
No, I'm telling you, he for Sam Raimi's vision of classic Spider-Man, we're talking like the old school, original, super nerdy Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire was a fantastic Peter Parker, the lovable loser, had to fight crime and then still get his Aunt May's medication, who had problems paying bills, super shabby chic. I mean, like that was brilliant. I just don't think he had the quip, the attitude,
no.
Because putting on the mask sort of brings out a personality in him that he's never able to show, and he was too shy to show anyone. It gives him freedom, and I just don't think that Tobey Maguire ever nailed that outgoing side of Spider-Man's personality.
Oh, no, yeah.
Whereas I think Andrew Garfield was way too cool as Peter Parker. I mean, like, the dude was just slick and savvy, and he's making one-liners before he ever put the mask on, and I kind of feel like that doesn't quite. You need that dichotomy. You need that shift. There needs to be something that happens when he puts the mask on, kind of like when classic Christopher Reeves would take the glasses off and he would be transformed from Clark Kent to Superman. Like, we need to be able to see that transition happen with one actor.
Okay, I hear you. Alexander Hernandez says, do you think Spidey will be perhaps referencing Age of Ultron, maybe a mention of Vigilante in New York, or he'll be seen in the end credits? I don't know at this point, because I think the movie's pretty much done. It's been done for it wrapped up months ago.
Yeah.
So maybe an end credit scene, possibly. Yeah. That might be the reveal.
There's always the potential for an end credit sequence. I'll be curious to see how they, because what the news that we've got right now is basically these two giant media companies just coming together to announce that they've reached a settlement on
the 64 split,
zone.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. It was like, this is the demilitarized zone of comic book interactions, Venn diagramming, where you can and cannot use Spider-Man. So I think we probably won't see. If we see anything, I agree, it'll probably be an end credit sequence, and I don't think we'll see anything huge with Spider-Man until they've had time to build it into a film proper, like with design and with vision.
Yeah, I agree. So probably in that end credit scene, we probably won't see it. So we might just be introduced to Peter Parker. That could be it.
Maybe
that could be a Peter Parker introduction. You're like, oh, that's Spider-Man. I don't like.
What would be kind of fantastic? And again, because it's like, I really just don't need to dedicate even another minute to Spider-Man's origins in a proper film. But if you could do like some sort of background action, Tony Stark is at a museum or at a lab facility, and you see them doing a school tour, and then you see a kid walking in the background going, it bit me. And that's all we do. That's the only thing we do for Spider-Man's origin would be amazing. That would be so hot.
Yeah, true. Lou Rod says, good day, guys. How's it going, Lou Rod? He says, Juan. Sorry, I said Juan. My bad.
You just went Schwarzenegger on me. It's fine.
No, he said incoming news for the show. So I guess he's
well, and the one thing, he did send a little image of Spider-Man with some text from one of the other movie blogs coming in, and one of the things we probably should still discuss about this deal is the money, and this is what Lou Rod sent, was that Sony Pictures will continue to finance, distribute, and they have final creative control over the Spider-Man films. But we still need to see how this interaction is going to work with the cross-licensing between these two, because Disney's not really going to put in a lot of Sony input on the Avengers franchise. So that's I think where we still have the potential, one, for a lot of friction for these two companies to work together, but the potential synergy would be amazing if they could work out very clear divisions. When Spider-Man is doing Avengers stuff, we have to have him be able to do this, which is still going to influence what Sony does with their films, and I think it'll influence it for the better, because they'll have a clearer framework of this whole movie and villain universe.
I mean, I definitely agree. Again, that split is roughly 60-40. I think what their plan is having both Feige and Amy as producers, which means Amy will become producer in any Spider-Man movie that any Marvel movie that Spider-Man's in, is
Hmm.
that person as the cross reference there, just to make sure that things kind of flow. But I think Marvel is probably the one who sets out the general story theme and says, this is the Spider-Man story we're going with because it ties into all these other stories we have.
Right.
Now, go make your movie and give us a script. Let's see. And then they go, all right. We need to add this here because that references to this and this, and we need to add that into it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still going to be tricky, but I think if Marvel says, okay, this is the general story, and we're picking it from this comic book, so instead of you doing any rubbish, just go read that and
Right.
and
Well,
and write your
but, but
script.
but between those two companies, I think Sony stands to benefit tremendously from having that framework. Because then you start having this ability. Like, this is one of those things when you can do anything, I think films start to suffer a little bit by having some kind of rule in place or some kind of constraint for what this character is going to do. I think that will actually improve the products that we're being getting from Sony, because getting into big issues with the second Garfield Spider-Man film, it becomes less a cohesive Spider-Man story and sort of a montage of Spider-Man greatest hits. And so, they cram a lot into that. They don't have a lot of connective tissue really driving the emotion of what those characters are going through, or at least not as much as I think they could have if they had just whittled back a little bit on all of the stuff that they were trying to pack into that film. And I think it goes back to, some of our absolute favorite comic book hero movies are the ones that only focus on one great villain. And I think a lot of this stuff gets lost in the shuffle when you start just doing whatever, and we're gonna impress everybody with all of this crazy stuff that's happening. And now Spider-Man actually has to still participate in a much larger universe, which means I think Sony will be a lot less likely to just go completely off the wall with every single Spider-Man villain that they've got.
Oh no, I definitely agree. Lurod says they keep the actor on the wraps until the end of the movie. Boom, it's a female Spider-Man. I don't think audiences are ready for
I mean,
this
and
yet.
again, but like Lurad, you're totally right. I think we're getting to a point. We've gone through so many Spider-Man film not so many. We've gone through two major Spider-Man film incarnations, but five Spider-Man films, of which I kind of only dig two of them. That
Which two do you dig?
I love Spider-Man 2, of the original, the
Yeah,
Tobey
the
Maguire
two.
with Doc Ock. Alfred Molina totally makes that film. For all of my issues with Sam Raimi's interpretation of Spider-Man, that one just nails, I think, what a really solid on the rails comic book action film should be. And then I do kind of like the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, but I still
Yeah,
feel that there are a lot of opportunities to tell better stories than repeating Spider-Man's origin story again. So
I
I mean,
definitely agree.
it's again, it's like I like it, but with reservations. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to see this again. It's like how every time we see a Batman film, it's like, oh, my parents. Like, I get it. I know what happened to Batman. We can just move on from there.
Yeah.
Um,
Although we get it in every single Batman movie and we just eat it up.
well, but isn't
That,
that what's
that
so great about The Dark
that's
Knight?
the
The Dark Knight, they don't spend time
no,
on
they don't.
Batman becoming
It's a
Batman, or
flash, gunshot bang. Let's go.
and they just move on. I mean, it's not even like when we get into what is it, Batman Forever, the first Joel Schumacher Batman, where
Yeah.
it's all about Batman coming to grips with the fact that he's Batman because his parents. And like at the end, he has to have this huge realization of what he's doing and coming to grips with it. And he's like, no, no, you're in your 30s, you're Batman. I think you've dealt with it. I think you understand what's going on.
Yeah. Leroy
So
says, remember the reshoots for Ultron. Yes, but a couple, I think word of those reshoots involve Loki and Hamdall, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, so I don't necessarily think it's
and
Spider-Man there.
And I mean, like we saw, I mean, like Marvel was pretty quick to start talking about reorganization and for distribution when these movies are going to be released. So we could totally be wrong that they might be trying to wedge in something Spider-Man or something Peter Parker now with
Yeah.
Ultron, especially to capitalize on this news actually kind of getting a bigger buzz than I thought it would. When Sony and Disney were initially in talks, we all kind of had this, oh yeah, they're going to do this and they'll probably find a way to work it out. And now that it's finally happened, I mean, we kind of saw that blow up last night. That
Yeah.
was really big news last night, especially in the film communities that I follow. So if Disney can find a way to intelligently crowbar in Peter Parker, I'm sure they've got a team of producers working on it as we speak.
Oh yeah, definitely. It will be interesting to see. I have something I was going to mention, but I think we could do it at the end. And then Alexander Hernandez says we would need a much younger version of Peter Parker because Civil War Peter Parker looked up to the other heroes as older brothers in a way. Also, having an actor that's already in his 30s and late 20s might not work. No, it will work. I think even
What?
someone who looked like Andrew Garfield, not his age, but he looked young enough to be in his
What
20s.
was the age? Because I thought the age of Peter Parker in Civil War was 30s. Wasn't that after the storyline where he was a New York public school teacher?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because he was
So,
married. Remember?
yeah. So I think there's again, because we're playing really fast and loose with Civil War. I mean, what's going to lead into Civil War can't involve the X-Men. So there are huge chunks of the comic book version of Civil War that obviously we're going to be completely ignoring. But there's potential to go either way. And I think I completely forgot the name of the guy who left the comment. Was it Hernandez?
Hernandez. Yeah.
So I mean, I think he's absolutely right in that I think audiences are used to more of a high school incarnation of Peter Parker, which is likely what we'll probably see for the film. But there is a storytelling element there where we could maybe introduce a Peter Parker who's maybe out of college, kind of following the end of what the Tobey Maguire storyline might have been. I mean, there's so much potential here because we're starting over again. We're starting over from scratch on what this Spider-Man's going to be, and it doesn't necessarily need to be anything that we've seen before in other film incarnations.
Now, who do you think in the standalone Spider-Man movie? Who do you think is gonna be the villain? I know this is an option. This is
Oh
coming
man.
2 years from now. I mean, who would you rather see as a villain for Spider-Man?
I mean, in the same way that I get twitchy about people talking about bringing back Joker again, Doc Ock is one of my favorites. I don't think they should lead off with someone like him. Venom is my all-time favorite Spider-Man side universe. I mean, I've got every single, miniseries of Venom. This is the Lethal Protector that ever came out. I don't want to see them just jump right back into Green Goblin. I don't know, man. That's tough. It's almost like I want to say, like, why not pick from some of the other rogues gallery that we haven't seen yet, like a Vulture or really doing a good story of like Spider-Man versus the Mob, introducing a Kingpin-like character,
Oh
tying that
God,
in with
Kingpin. No,
like
see, Kingpin to me is actually my favorite Spider-Man villain because of the cartoons that had
oh,
Kingpin in
totally,
it.
dude.
With Alex Smythe and all that stuff. But I don't think they will use Kingpin because Kingpin is Daredevil at this point, and
Well, but that's also something else we should talk about is because Sony doesn't own any other Marvel properties at this point, right? They had what is it? They had Spider-Man and Daredevil. Did they have Punisher? Was that on Sony's plate?
I don't
I don't
know.
remember. But anyway, so I mean, this is whittled down just to Spider-Man, but Kingpin is a part of the Spider-Man universe. So whatever licensing that they might have had on Spider-Man villains, there could still be the potential for that. I mean, that could be when you're doing talks, and Disney now went back to Daredevil. Like they could say, well, like, hey, you could give us back Kingpin for a movie because we're giving you Spider-Man
Man.
for for Civil War. So
Yeah.
like I think the idea of introducing Kingpin, especially in the way that the Ultimate Spider-Man tackles the Kingpin character, I think could be a really interesting way to create a framework for how other Spider-Man villains are introduced.
Dude,
So
yeah.
I mean, I think with his mob connections, it's a really easy way, to bring in like Rhino. That's Rhino isn't the chief bad guy, but Rhino is one of the obstacles that gives us all of our
Yes.
action sequences. And then it's about Peter Parker using his wits and his savvy to try and like hack into Kingpin's computer systems or try and get video surveillance footage from his servers, stuff like that. So I think
Mhm.
that would be a great way to showcase Peter Parker has to fight Kingpin with his brains, but Spider-Man has to fight Kingpin's rogues gallery
Gallery,
with
yeah.
with his might.
Yeah. Alex says Craven or Mysterio.
Oh, and you see again. I mean, there are so many. It's like Batman and Spider-Man, the richest rogues galleries in comic book history. There are so many different tacks that you could do standalone Spider-Man stories with, and have fantastic movies. Even with some of the villains that don't have quite the same high profile. You know, like Green Goblin is super high profile. There are just so many different stories that you could tell here, and you would never have to revisit the same characters twice.
No, definitely. A few more comments here. Mr. Pachi says, "I'm so tired of Peter Parker with 5 movies he's had. What do you guys think about possibly bringing Miles Morales to create a story for
Oh,
him?"
you guys, you know, we would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, and the
we'd
thing
be
is,
totally down.
I think if Marvel wants to do a home run, if they really want to knock this out of the park, because the question I actually had at the end of this is this is that game of cat and mouse we talked about with Marvel and DC. Marvel has now done its here's our giant trump card, DC your turn, and if you really want to take it to the next level and really not necessarily surpass DC or do any, but just really set it aside and say, look at what we've done, and we've actually, move Spider-Man from one generation to another generation, with Peter Parker, and because you can always bring out Peter Parker from the dead. It doesn't matter. It's comic books. Look, you
can do maximum clonage.
Yeah, you can do so many things to bring him back from the dead. And again, you have Tony Stark around. You probably would find himself.
What was the clone? It was Ben.
Oh, Ben was one of the clones, the one with the blue and the red.
Well, no, and we found out that the Peter Parker, it was maximum clonage. We found out that the Peter Parker we'd been following for years was really the clone, and that the person we thought was the clone was going by Ben, is the Scarlet Spider. Yeah. I mean that's what I mean, is that there's so many crazy delineations of Spider-Man lore and multiverse style storytelling that you could do like a 2 or 3 movie run. And that's actually something that I really hope that Marvel and DC start examining, is the idea of, we're going to take an event from the comics and we're going to boil it down to like 3 movies. It's what I always wanted to see them do with Nightfall for Batman. Is the introduction of Bane and sort of breaking the Batman into another film where you've got to sort of deal with Bane and Azrael steps up, and then a third film that as Batman returns and wears the mantle of the Bat again. That would have been an amazing film trilogy.
Technically you had that with the Dark Knight series, because it was all about Ra's al Ghul.
No. Unfortunately, in taking
the third one.
In the third one, it falls apart in the third one because they take all of Nightfall and try and cram it into one film.
Yeah,
and I think Nightfall
didn't have a lot to do in the second. You didn't sprinkle some of that in the second, because the second was all about Joker. It almost feels like that's a standalone movie.
And Nightfall was such a big storyline, because it wasn't just the breaking of Batman. It was how Batman returns, and so unfortunately, what you get in The Dark Knight Returns is the same movie twice, where Bruce Wayne has to decide to be Batman again, and then he gets his back broken, and then Bruce Wayne has to decide to be Batman again. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You get a really repetitive. The structure is really repetitive.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I kind of hope that what we see is maybe sort of a smarter approach to, instead of saying like, hey, we're going to try and string these characters around for as long as possible until the actors get tired of playing them, of maybe. And especially for some of these characters, making a more focused, 3-part. You could do like a 2 or 3-part Death of Spider-Man, Rise of Miles Morales, do a follow-up with Miles Morales, and if then the interest in that starts to wane, you bring back Peter Parker through Maximum Clonage. You do a 3-part, then you can do Maximum Carnage with the symbiotes, and you can do like another 3-part, and you can kind of keep moving through some of this comic book lore, giving us the actual stories from the comic books, not just stories inspired by the comic books. And that way you never really get bored of anyone.
Yeah, but it's Marvel. Marvel doesn't do comic stories from the comic. They do inspired stories.
We're doing but like we're doing Civil War.
But it's not the same Civil War.
No. And what I mean by that is, and what I mean by that is like that Civil War is actually pulled from the comic book, and obviously we need to make huge changes for it to be in a movie. But The Dark Knight Begins is not pulled from the comic. It's sort of a loose interpretation rewritten from Batman Year One and a couple other storylines. That
I think 4 or 5 books in total, I think.
And same thing with Man of Steel. It obviously doesn't follow the New 52. It obviously doesn't follow.
It follows like 3 generations of Superman,
and they mash them all together. So if you're gonna say you're gonna give me Civil War, that's because you're pulling it from
From
the comic books, and that's what they're using. And in the same way that we got movies like Watchmen. Watchmen is severely
God,
is
that was a direct, almost as direct interpretation as you can get.
right, and we've gotten a few like that I think that have worked really well.
Right.
So sorry, short story, incredibly long. That's kind of what I would hope to see is in expanding this Marvel universe.
We
Is
have a bunch of comics
narrower
here.
focus.
Magic Kuru. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm not pronouncing anything right. Magic. He says, he or she says, if Civil War has Spider-Man, Iron Man, Black Panther, Black Widow, don't you think this will put Captain America in the shadows? No, because it's. I mean, it all depends how it's written, but again, the two opposing sides are Captain America and Iron Man. So everybody has to fall into place.
Yeah, it's going to be about conflict. It's really not going to be about any one of those characters. And if they do that movie well, then every character that kind of gets roped into one side or the other should get a little screen time.
Yeah. Alex says having Spider-Man in one of the Netflix series would be cool. On that note, if you could be in one of the Netflix shows, which one would you like to see him? It'd be Daredevil for me.
It has to be Daredevil, and also that would be huge if the Daredevil universe could get to piggyback a little bit on the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah. Okay, after hearing what you guys are saying, it makes me on board on getting on Miles Morales. Yeah.
It's a great storyline, and it's one of those, like, especially if anyone's watching the show or they're a fan of Spider-Man, but they haven't read through that Death of Spider-Man storyline. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's a beautiful storyline and how they introduce Miles Morales. I would highly recommend it.
Alex says Ben Reilly. Yep, thank you very much.
Ben Reilly, thank you, because I remember it was Uncle Ben, but I couldn't remember what he picked as his last name. Scarlet Spider. Maximum Clonage was so corny, and I freaking loved it.
No, it was great. It was great. It was corny, but it was great. Lurod says, "What if they agreed months ago, but now they let the cat out of the bag? I haven't released all the movie dates in case Sony's backs out, having all the actors in place."
So, Lurod, again, you're giving these companies. I mean, it's like I want to be with you on this optimism, but it's also we're talking about Sony, and I just don't give them. I just don't have any faith that they're that good.
I mean, to Lurod's point, the best example of where this can't actually work was
Sony.
Not Sony. Was with Man of Steel with WB.
Right.
They brought in Ben Affleck way early into the conversation, and they had prepped all those things, and they even the way they did the casting for the movie was kind of like what Lurod is hoping for. That's different.
No. And the thing is, Warner Brothers has a track record of long-term franchise that Sony doesn't.
Exactly.
It's also it's Sony. If they had done something months ago, there was no way they could have kept it under wraps.
It would have leaked.
It would have leaked so long ago. So again, Lurod, I'm totally with you. In hoping that maybe that these two companies were able to pull something like that off.
That's why they
don't think it's likely.
That's why they dropped the press release last night, because they just finished in the afternoon.
Right.
So
the ink was still fresh on this peace accord between.
Kevin Feige is like, you know what? Let's do the pen and paper and let's just fax it in. I don't trust your servers. Let's just do it that way. So
before we wrap up, though, I was kind of curious to get your thoughts on this. In that Sony's Marvel relationship is now whittled down to one character that's going to be cross-licensed with Disney. What do you think this is going to mean for Fox? Because Fox actually turned out a surprisingly better X-Men universe with Days of Future Past than I thought they would be able to. But we've also seen Disney go on the offensive in killing off a bunch of characters that they no longer have control over.
Yeah. I think it's fine as long as Fox continues to do what they're doing well now with the X-Men franchise and duplicate that with Gambit and Deadpool. And now that we know Deadpool is a smaller movie, more concentrated, Gambit is the one that has to be a big hit. Deadpool is the one that will just help continue to grow the fandom, because it's not going to be a big hit. It will do well. If it's done well, it will do well, but I don't think it's going to be that mega, hit they're looking for. But it's those two, and seeing what they can do in, expanding the X-Men franchise. They're talking about an X-Men TV show also. Yeah. So I think Fox has a better play, because depends on if they were smart, depends on what they do in the next X-Men movie. if you want, they should stop doing what they did in Days of Future Past, where they introduce characters for kill sake, you
Right.
know, and introduce characters you know, for fan opinion, to see what fans want to see as the next great character, you know, in movies, which is kind of what WB is trying to do with Batman, Superman, and Justice League. It's literally whoever you like is going to be the movie that's moved up first.
Right.
You know, where fans say, well, "Oh, Cyborg is awesome." That 2018
Do it.
moves to like 2017. You know, and if people kind of go, Green Lantern, we'll keep that at 2018. We'll see how
Right.
it warms up, and we'll
Now,
throw
do you
in
think
some other
do you
stuff.
think we'll stick to we'll avoid some of the failures of past comic book films like Spawn? Do you think we'll get a rated R Deadpool?
I hope so. I hope
If they're
it's
talking about limiting the scope, I think it would kind of be silly to limit the scope of the film, like make it a more narrow and more concentrated film, and then ignore the fact that this is sort of an NC-17 character.
yeah. I hope they do. I really hope they do, and I hope they just sit down and say, you know what, let's go balls out on the rating. Let's do what we want to do, and then let's make it rated R. Or if it's not rated R, it has to be, which you know, there's nothing like that, but a hard PG-13.
No, I mean, like, because I think there's this notion of tentpole film for superhero films that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in production and hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising, so we need to get $1 billion at the box office. But if you take the success of films like Sin City, if you go out of your way, you keep your budgets in check. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is a big name, but he's not like a $30 million a film kind of name. And you can keep the focus narrow. You keep the movie lean. It's like 110 minutes, action, romp, tons of jokes, breaking the fourth wall, and gory action, so you can get that hard R. And I
Yeah.
think you would have a movie that has the potential to completely unseat Prometheus as being one of the most successful rated R films of all time.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely, I definitely agree. I think it's something that a lot of people would, um, you know, would like and enjoy, but they just have to keep that scope in check. I think they just have to keep it in check and do it. But I think Fox is fine. If Days of Future Past didn't do so well, then they would have a problem. But I think Fox
Right.
is actually fine, you know, in where they stand. You know, with and also they have X-Men, which means literally, if Fox wanted to create a movie from a single X-Man, they can do it.
Yeah.
It just has to be written properly. So they have a plethora. I mean, they bought the best license possible. Even though
Well,
Sony has made a lot of money from Spider-Man, Fox
right.
has the potential to just kill it and never come back to
Now,
Marvel and be
now,
fine.
do you think that the idea of pushing into a Gambit film is a response to the fact that Wolverine was killed off in the comics?
No, I think no. I think the rumors of that had been on for a while. That's something I found the lady who is the producer on X-Men. She wanted to do Gambit for a while,
Oh, okay.
especially after the Wolverine movie where Gambit and Deadpool were just kind of, you know,
Oh God.
yeah, you know, completely disgraced. So she
I
wanted
just
to do that,
that movie just never.
and so when you heard like Channing Tatum was going to be in it, you know, people like this and that. Speaking of Channing Tatum, and I
Hmm.
know, you know, a lot of people have seen bad reviews about this movie, but if you like Greek mythology, go watch Jupiter Ascending.
Okay.
Just, I mean, it's not perfect, but I love that movie.
I know
It
for
was
Valentine Date we were either where Marie and I are either going to see that or Kingsman.
that's just a good choices. I
So
would say
like
this.
for our Valentine's film, we wanted to see over the top action.
It's great. It's great. No, I would tell you this: Jupiter Ascending, Scope, Wachowskis. What I just say they need to do is they need to just get a writer who understands them. But those guys know how to give you scope.
Well, and I think they're another filmmaker I would love a team of filmmakers that I would love to see work again under a bit more constraint. I think their films are more creative when they have to solve problems. Like the first Matrix film is
Yeah,
I think a better movie going experience than their later films where they had no constraint. They had no one to tell them no. They had no issues with budget. Anything they wanted to do, they could do. And I think that some of that gets a little out of control sometimes.
Yeah.
There's going to be what is it? It's a 4-hour cut of
The Matrix.
no, not The
Oh,
Matrix.
I was
What
gonna
was the
say
film that
actually.
they did before? The
Oh, Cloud
Atlas.
Atlas.
Yeah, so there's going to be a 4-hour cut of Cloud Atlas on Netflix, and
See,
Netflix
but
is
I
talking
see
that up a whole
Cloud
bunch.
Atlas. I don't know what people found wrong with it. I liked it. I mean,
It's
I'm
just
just
super experimental. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you from the this is another one of their problems. If you build this as from the filmmakers who brought you The Matrix,
Yeah, true.
and
Yeah.
then you go and see Cloud Atlas, I mean that's a very different movie going experience.
No, I sat
It's
down and watched Cloud Atlas. I love the movie. It's very different. I love,
Mhm.
and a lot of people were like, I didn't understand the time lineage. I mean, maybe it's just me. I'm like, seriously, it's not that hard. But
Right.
that was a good one. But anyway, before we go on a tangent there, we have one more comment here from Magic. He says, I'm French, and we don't read a lot of comics here until today. I've never heard of Miles Morales, and I think that the first Spider-Man will be Peter Parker, but because Miles Morales is probably known only by U.S. people.
Yeah, that's true too.
If you get a chance to check out the
Yep.
series with Miles Morales, definitely do. Even when I heard, like, I remember when my buddy of mine told me, like, he killed Spider-Man in this new one. I was like, but I read it. I was like, oh, okay,
Oh,
this is pretty cool.
wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those where, because I was like, especially after the death of Superman, which
Right.
spearheaded all the constant deaths in comic book movies, and how that was handled. I mean, the death part of Superman was fine. The resurrection of Superman was not the part I liked.
Nope. Actually, I think the most successful death storyline that I've ever seen in comic books is the one-off that they did for the Hulk, because it's not a part of continuity. It's just this is how we imagine the Hulk would or Bruce Banner would die.
Yeah.
And so it's not, they didn't have to find some cheeky way to bring him back from the dead or explain interdimensional travel or introduce a new Hulk. It was just, like at the end of his life, this is what we think the end of the would be for the Hulk.
Yeah.
And again, it's a quiet, simple, one-off graphic novel, and it's great. It's phenomenal, and I wish that they had continued with that experiment with some of our other especially some of these other like super powerful.
Oh yeah, exactly.
comic
I
book
mean,
characters.
the best death of Superman is the one they did in the animated movie with Superman Doomsday, where they gave a better explanation of his death than the comic book one was very bad.
Yeah. Well, and they did that thing like what you were talking about, was like, let's see which of these Supermen is most popular coming out, and everyone wanted traditional Superman back, so they had to find a way to shoehorn in plot points that made no sense for how those individual Supermen were behaving. All of a sudden, oh, this guy's a bad guy for reasons. Because reasons.
Yeah, because sometimes people turn evil. So anyway, sorry guys, we start going into a comic book tangent here of all sorts. But any let me just see if there's any questions here in the YouTube comments that we need to go
I
through.
was just pulling them up right now. I feel the same way. I'm tired of seeing the same Spider-Man story all over again, from Jason R. Berry, because Jason, you have good taste and you understand what goes into making a story, and showing us the same thing over and over again does not go into making a good story.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we pretty much answered everything. Oh yeah, Lou Rod says Fox sees how huge Captain America Civil War has become with Spider-Man and offers to lend Wolverine in the deal. I don't think so. I don't, because they'll be losing money actually. I mean, Wolverine will not make them money, but on its own. But Wolverine will make money as long as he's in the X-Men.
And then for Alex Hernandez, and again, thanks for that last comment, Alex Hernandez. He asks, what is that Hulk graphic novel you mentioned? I would love to check that out. And it's called Hulk: The End. And it's a super short, super lean, super quiet storyline talking about the last days of the Hulk, and how Bruce Banner is coming to grips with his sort of conjoined twin in a giant green monster. So it's a wonderful story.
Available on Amazon for it's like $20 hardcover. Yeah. Oh,
I even just have the paperback. I think I paid like $6 for it.
You can get the Kindle version for $4.99.
But that's another one. It's another one too, especially if you're a fan of Hulk. Because of the way that they write the Hulk, I thought this one was just a really great way to tell a Hulk storyline without having to worry about continuity. So I think it's great.
Yeah, definitely. So that is it, guys. Thank you very much for chiming in. It's been fun. A lot of stuff. We'll probably talk more again this weekend in the weekly roundup, which starts at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So times have changed. But the one question again we put forward is, who would you like to see as Spider-Man? If it's Peter Parker, let us know your thoughts on who you would like to see as Peter Parker in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Leave that in the comments of the
And I'll
video.
actually, and I'll add the addendum of who would you like to see as the first standalone Spider-Man movie villain?
Yes. So who's going to be Spider-Man and who you like to see as a villain? Name of the actor for Spider-Man, villain of choice. If you want to put the actor too with that,
Do it.
do it. Be our guest. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much. It's been a fun show talking all things Spider-Man, comic books, and we just transcend into other things.
Yeah, we're gonna ramble a bit on that one always every time we have to cover this stuff.
Yeah, so again, don't forget to check out our channels. You can check out Mr. Weinbagnell from Some Gadget Guy. SomeGadgetGuy.com is his website. You can check him out on YouTube. It's Weinbagnell, as well as Weinbagnell on Instagram. No, it's Some Gadget Guy on Instagram, Twitter, and Google Plus.
Yup.
Yep, and don't forget to check us out at Borderwork. It's Borderwork on all social media channels as well as the website. Check out all the videos we have. Subscribe so you can check out more content from us. And don't forget to always enjoy entertainment.